Our next section, In Search of Talent, aims to shed light on the talent shortage in the industry. We have Mr. Prahlad Puri, co-founder and executive director, Indian School of Hospitality, moderating this panel. With Mr. Puri, we have Mr. Ashutosh Khanna, industry HR expert, Mr. Gautam Srivastava, Vice President Human Resources, the Leela Palace Hotels and Resorts, Mr. Nikhil Sharma, Regional Director, Eurasia Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, Mr. Shiv Agrawal, Managing Director, ABC Consultants, and Mr. Yogendra, Agnihotri, Senior Director, Human Resources, South Asia, Radisson Hotel Group.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I hope your day has been good so far. I hope you've enjoyed the campus and the lovely sessions we've had through the day today. Now we're going to talk about something that's been a continuous thread through the different discussions that have happened today, and that is talent. More specifically, being in search of talent. It's an interesting panel for you all today. We have both hospitality professionals as well as recruiters who recruit in the leadership space, which will allow us to explore the talent gap across levels. We'll touch upon aspects such as transferable skills, industry attractiveness, changing consumer behavior, and generational shifts. So without further ado, I'll kick off by asking you the first question, and this is addressed to the hoteliers on the panel. Taking into consideration the post-pandemic environment surrounding the volatility of the hospitality industry, could you shine some light on some of the difficulties the hospitality industry has faced in attracting talent across levels?
All right, I'll go first. Firstly, very good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Last 2 years have been really very difficult for all of us, especially for our industry. We have been working hard to protect livelihoods. But yes, this pandemic has actually widened the gap, right? There has been a talent crunch for many, many years. But this particular pandemic has really kind of expanded the gap too much. As an organization, as a company, we are growing at a very fast pace. We are opening almost a hotel every month. We need almost 6,000 more employees to work with us in next 3 years. But yes, the challenge is that we are not finding talent, the right talent, I would say. What could be the reason? Reasons are manifold, but one of the biggest elephant in the room is actually about the compensation structure. I think as an industry, we need to work hard to bring compensation level to an acceptable level. Second important aspect or the challenge we are facing is so-called work-life balance. Imagine today's generation, they talk about work-life balance. In our hotels, we still have split shifts. We have break shifts, right? And I think with today's generation, one of the key important aspects is empowerment and freedom to work. I think overall in our industry still, we are very rigid and very regimental in certain processes, right? Today's generation is very different. They want little more freedom to work, little more empowerment to take decisions. I think that's one of the key issue which I feel needs to be addressed. And I sincerely feel everyone sitting in this room needs to take that responsibility. Every one of us have to lead by example. We can't keep blaming any other situation or any other person. It's us who need to make decisions. We have spoken about this many times, right? In many forums, but I think it's time now to act on it. So that's what is my view on this.
Hi everyone, good evening. I've been here since morning, and I've heard, I think, almost all panel discussions and the guest speaker sessions have been mostly around people and talent. We all know that we may build great assets and we are luxury hotels and luxury experiences, but I think people who run the hotel are actually the people. and they actually bring out the guest experiences and the brand standards. And that is why it's very vital for us to invest in our people. As to what my friend just said here, in case I want to reiterate that the big elephant, one is the compensation is the big one, and I would like to echo that. In case you have freshers who are coming out of the colleges, the kind of salaries we pay today, that becomes less attractive when you look at other industries and other companies offering that kind of salaries, right? You have many startups, which have mushroom, BPOs, KPOs, which are offering much better salaries. So I think we have to address this problem as a company and also across the industry. Second, also about these long hours. We also have to accept the fact that some of the things about the hotels is that which can't change. Long hours, weekend workings, so during the festival time they're working. So I think these things will remain. But what we can actually do is to make sure that we create fun at work and really have to invest in our people managers. We also have to understand that where we are today, there's a shortage of talent, but this shortage was already there before pandemic. What pandemic has done is only fast-track the problem. And now you have multi-generational workforce working within the same hotel, right? So we talk about Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. So today's population, which is right now coming from the colleges, which you're hiring, who are in the age gap of about 21 to 25 years, these are called Gen Zs. They were born in 1997 and later. They were born with internet. So they are the privileged lot. They are much more aware. They are much more aware about the surroundings. So they know their rights. They know exactly, and they also privileged lot in sense saying that we can call them as privileged, we can call them as people who have an attitude, people who will not take something, direct orders from the supervisors, will not look at harsh conditions, so on and so forth, right? So I think a lot of investment has been made in our people managers. And this has been going on for many, many years. Even when I started my career, we realized that people managers in India, I would say specifically, they have spent very less time managing people. And that's the biggest skill you can earn as a manager or a people manager. So I think to attract talent, and going back to the same question which you asked, Prahlad, is that we have to make industry very attractive. And how can you make it attractive? So I have a few things to talk about here. That if you look at operations, and we launched a program called Leela Leadership Development Program with the intent that we get in people who are at least 1 year experience. 1 year experience, they have actually worked in a hotel for a year. They have run the operation. They have seen the long hours. They have seen how the work environment is. I think this is where we bring them there and we give them 15 months of intensive training, both in partnership with ISH, like 15 months of training in classroom and on the job, to get them ready for the future and get them ready with the required skills on the overall hotel operations, revenue management, sales, and know all aspects of the hotel, so that when they actually touch the operations floor after 15 months, they're ready to take on the role. So there's no gap in terms of as to when they go on the shop floor and what they have acquired in the classroom. And we have given them a clear career path. So I think what we do is to give people clear career path. This is what they're looking for. Where will I be in 10 years? In which industry have you seen that you can be a CEO of a hotel in about 12 to 13 years? I mean, so we have some young GMs here who are in the early 40s, late 30s, who are the GMs, who are handling 100 crore kind of a business plus 100 crore plus business. In which industry can actually offer that you become a CEO of a company in 12 to 13 years, right? So this is what we have to talk more about it. And we have to talk more about it. We have to go more to the colleges, meet more youngsters, and be ready for it. And be able to imbibe that culture and understand as to where they're coming from. And that will come from understanding and awareness of a multi-generational workforce working under the same roof. Because you'll have somebody at 40 years old, you'll have a 30 years old, and maybe a 35-year-old is actually managing them. Do they really understand what a 21-year-old actually wants? Right? Thanks.
Nikhil? Prahlad, firstly, I'd just like to say thanks to Manav and team for the 9th HOSI and the Puris for building this institution. It's a fantastic institution, and all the volunteers, the students that have participated today, without which I think it wouldn't have been a large success to a big round of applause for the students actually. And since this is about talent, they are the future. Enough's been said about the past. I want to just change gears and talk about what is it that we need to do as an industry, and talk about the future, right? And we can all be blamed for the past, firstly. Case in point, industrial trainees and how we treat industrial trainees. We all know how we treat industrial trainees. I think hoteliers and hotels need to recognize when an IT comes in, he is not coming in to just cut onions, like Prahlad was saying, the piyaz mentality, or just put dirty dishes in the dishwasher, right? They're looking for a long-term career, and the onus lies on each one of us in this room to make that happen. We should not treat them as casuals. We should treat them as future hoteliers. And that step starts with every organization. At Wyndham, we're doing a little bit of this, and I'll speak a little bit about that a little later, but it's important for us to distinguish the skilling and the managers right up front. And institutions like these are creating those future managers, and institutions like THSC are creating the skilled workforce, and you heard
This is not recorded.
Back?
I was just saying, you heard Rohit Khosla speaking earlier about Tata Strive. It's a great program, so if you guys have not subscribed to it, there is talent available, skilled talent available for hotels. Please look at that. Please look at that for your hotels. Just speaking about talent is not good. I can tell you what's happening globally, and I think India needs to wake up to that reality. One is you are going to see a hybrid workforce going forward in hospitality. It's already happening in the West. You are going to see higher pay grades, whether we like it or not. The GOPs are there to support it. Right sizing, optimum sizing, and we can keep speaking about the numbers, but the reality is the 2019 numbers are now never going to come back. You might as well compensate the current employees and pay them the right salaries. Those are two things that need to happen.
That's
the third,
fantastic.
Work-life balance. And I think any industry, the first few years are difficult, and we are no different. Listen, it's an industry that is run by passionate people. All of you in this room are passionate hoteliers. That's why you're here today. That's why you made that journey. We need to ensure the new generation that's coming in has and instills that passion that each one of you in this room have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I spent some time with all my fellow panelists a little earlier, and one thing that we all unanimously agreed on is that we as an industry, and when I say we, I'm pointing fingers at myself as much as I am at everybody in this room, we talk a lot about this issue. We need to do this, we have to do that, we've got to bring in these practices. But I just want to leave you with a thought, and I hope you keep this thought through this discussion and beyond. When do we start? Everybody today has spoken about the challenges, the problems, the inability to keep people. The question isn't what are the challenges? The question is, what are we doing about it today? And if anybody in this room believes that we're doing everything we can to ensure that this talent gap, this war on talent is going to be no longer a problem in the next 5 to 7 years, I think we've got to give ourselves a little bit of a reality check, don't we? But anyway, I'm digressing. So basis your answers, gentlemen, and thank you so much for that. That was very insightful. Clearly, the industry is becoming less and less attractive to people across levels. I want to switch this question to the two professionals from the recruitment side of things to understand what, in your opinion, does the industry need to do to make itself, firstly, more attractive? And I think more importantly, to hire more competitively. We've heard about salaries being increased. We've heard about work-life balance. We've heard about, Yogendra spoke about break shift. I can't believe in 2022 we're still doing break shifts. I mean, you go and speak to a student outside there, they're going to turn around and say, what is break shift? Okay, I'm not joining this industry. But anyway, I would love to get your input on how we can hire more competitively and how we can become more attractive beyond the general metrics of higher pay, better work-life balance, and so on. So over to you.
So not being from the space, 15 years ago, I remember talking to someone and asking about talent issues, and when I'm listening to the same thing today, it's still the same thing. So clearly, I think the time to do rather than to speak is there. I think the industry needs an image makeover to start with when it comes to talent, right? There are clearly, why would a youngster, bright youngster, work twice as hard for half the pay with slow career growth in an industry, oh, by the way, which let go of 30% of its people 2 years ago? I mean, why would somebody do that, right? So I think one is, if you don't fix one of these metrics, I'm not saying increase pay, reduce work hours, etc. It's not practical. But if you don't start to fix that, you're looking at a bubble that's going to burst quite rapidly there. So it is, we can talk of all the good stuff and, have mentorship, etc. there. But I think the reality is you will need to find ways for these basic solutions. If from what I understood from, I think Nikhil saying that if internationally this is beginning to happen, if people are beginning to pay more, what is holding us back here? I think the sector is living in the industrial revolution where it was about roti, kapda, makan. So we believe that youngsters are here to, we're doing them a favor. This generation is long past that. They are talking of quality of life. They are saying, how is my work centered around my life, and not vice versa, like all of us have grown up in over there. If we don't have a mechanism to fix that or to grapple with that, this sector is in big trouble.
Very insightful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Ashutosh, over to you.
So all this is music to my ears. I've been attending, conferences like these for about a decade, and every time that I've ever raised this bogey that your talent's under threat, no one's actually listened to it. And so this is actually fantastic that this is the elephant in the room, and that's being addressed. By the way, 2-3 things. The run on talent is not unique to the hospitality industry. The run on talent is everywhere. So congratulations, you're in good company. Secondly, the war for talent is over. Talent has won. So that's the other. Thirdly, I think the industry has largely been, okay, I'll be provocative. It's fossilized itself, right? Which is the last innovation that got driven in the hospitality industry. Yet when I look at every other industry, there are inflection points that have been happening over the last decade. It takes an outsider to come and disrupt this industry. It takes an Airbnb without a hospitality background, it takes an Oyo without a hospitality background and such like, or a Make My Trip to, a guy from GE to come and do something. And that's when everybody wakes up and says, Arey, now let's do this piece. So somewhere down the line, I think if you're answering what's the answer of who, I think go back and address the other two questions, what and how. And somewhere down the line, if you don't fix that, you can keep worrying about who. It'll all be talk. So every other industry has taken on automation and then said, we need less people. And so thereby we can pay them more. It doesn't have to be like the like the 1300s, where Julius Caesar said, that's my army and that's the pyramid. And so corporate Fortune 500 companies, and actually all companies for the last century and beyond, have always structured themselves on Julius Caesar's model. There's something called agile learning, agile workforce. There's something about teams coming together for projects, disbanding, getting into something else. Where's all that? Which is the last time any hospitality, and I'll love to be educated, but only because of my ignorance on that piece, which is the last time somebody did a time motion study on some process in the kitchen, in the front office, and said, yeah, we are doing it all wrong. I'll tell you, and I catch 4 to 6 flights a week. Probably spend about 2 or 3 nights every week in some hotel or the other. there's a younger demographic, some 30-year-old who are staying, and the companies or they themselves are paying some 10,000-15,000 bucks to stay in that hotel. For the most part, the 5 stars at least, are geared towards delivering to the 50-year-olds like me and not to the 30-year-olds. And so he doesn't want the frills that I do. Is there a networking center in the evening where guys come back for the meetings, just have a VC talk about something, have a private equity guy talk about something? Where are those opportunities to connect? I'm sorry, I'm deviating, but I'm just saying that I'm just talking about this as a mind. So let me just stop here, Prahlad.
Thank you for that. I think you did hit a very important note, right? There's a demographic disconnect as well, not just between the employer and the employee, but between an organization and its customer. And we'll come to that in a little while. I want to touch upon something else just before we circle back to that. And this is a question for the entire panel here. Why is it that fewer young graduates want to join operational roles and instead are looking at functional roles? More importantly, management training programs, which were so attractive once upon a time, especially in our industry, just aren't anymore. Today, the newer graduates are looking at roles in revenue management, digital marketing, finance, real estate, and that's only within hospitality. Many of them, in fact, a majority of them, are then looking onwards to allied service businesses. You talk about service industries like retail, real estate, healthcare, and e-commerce, just to name a few. Why is this happening? We are losing our potential talent even before they consider us. Would you shine some light upon that?
I would say that going back to the question on, the first exposure of an IHM graduate is 6 months of internship in a hotel. And I'll go back to what was just said earlier, is that how do we treat them? So we put them to cut onions, chop garlic, so make them go to the storeroom, so your deep freezer, so on and so forth. They do all the dirty job in the hotel. And that is their nurturing ground, because that's how they're getting exposed to the hotel for the first time. And their exposure starts from there. The impression starts getting built from there, because when they're going into a college, they're going with some expectations. Now there are many IHM colleges, private colleges, so on and so forth, right? So when they go into a classroom, the environment within the classroom is different. When they actually go to the actual hotel, they realize that life is not hunky-dory. It's not as easy as what I felt. This is all glamour, but once you go inside the back of the house area, heart of the house areas, the locker rooms, they are not very well kept at times. So I think a lot of focus has to happen into how do we nurture them at that stage and capture them and give them a good experience. But that is how you will build credibility of the hotel organization. That's how they will have a desire to come back to the hotel and work. But large amount of time goes into making them do all the low-grade job. And when they go back to the colleges, they have already formed the impression. And then they go for their second internship, they realize this is not for me. And now with many options opening up, they have many avenues. The people passing out of hotel colleges, hotels are not the only option anymore. Maybe it was about 20, 25 years back, but now they have many options. You have startups, you have a company like Zomato, you have a company like Amazon, BPOs, KPOs, and they're offering phenomenal salaries. So I think we still have to go back on the salary component, but I think we as hoteliers and we as custodians of the hospitality industry, we really have to introspect, make that environment much better for the younger generation to experience the hotel in a different way. They would like to feel cared for, they like to feel nurtured. They are looking for somebody to have conversations with them, explain to them, talk to them. And this is how you build care with them. That's how they will be attracted to the industry.
Sorry, there is something about the hospitality industries, and I do one search in maybe 1.5 years or something. Well, every time that you say hire somebody from outside of hospitality, even in a CEO function, I think it's like there's an instant recoil amongst boards and CEOs saying, no, can't do that. I wonder why, every guy who comes in from outside of the industry almost then kind of goes away. And I won't take names here, but, there's somebody who came from an airline industry and then went away, and then, it's almost like the industry doesn't really want somebody from from a different sector. And I can't for the life of me understand why. Because I would have placed, I don't know, close to 100 CEOs in my career so far, probably more. Across sectors, everybody's more than happy to look at what the competency and the mindset is, and the learning agility is, or whatever else, attribute you might wish to. Sector, I mean, how does it matter to a hotel that the CEO knows what it takes to, kind of build a fine operating team? I just can't, for the life of me, figure out. Even on marketing, even on sales, for the most part, my wife's been part of a sales function she'll kill me if she hears this. But frankly, the rigor that I would see in a salesperson that comes from a consumer industry is not what I see in an average hospitality professional. It is about an air-conditioned car, and that's how sales are happening. Yeah, it's not about the rigor of segmentation, the rigor of the daily sales cycle. Have you covered that customer once a week, once a month, once a fortnight? I don't see that. So somewhere down the line, yet why would you as an industry not go out and say, maybe you're not doing it right. Let's do it in another way. How many hotels? Okay, let's just talk about filling rooms. How do hotels typically fill rooms? It's the old sales function and some degree of digital, marketing. Guys, look at how the banking guys do it, or how the insurance guys do it. I can tell you're about 5 years behind in just the way it's being addressed.
2 decades, not 5 years.
I'll be
just,
polite, but anyways, thanks.
So Ashutosh, let me just attempt at answering the first point that you made on the product a little bit. So at Wyndham, we acquired our 23rd brand just yesterday, which was announced, Vienna House. It's 40 hotels, 6,000 keys in Europe. We just launched a Ramada Encore in Siliguri, which is a lifestyle brand. So hotels are evolving. We are slow on the technology part, on the product part, but we're getting there on talent. But I can guarantee you we're getting there. So that's the good part, that we'll get there. And there's recognition of lack of XYZ, right? That's the first piece. The second piece, I think it's a great industry, and this institution is a great example. We export talent to other functions. It could be an OTA, it could be retail, it could be hotels, it could be the Amazons of the world. So it's a great talent pool. As an employee, I have great opportunity because I have avenues. As an employee, it's not an issue. As an employer, it's the industry's issue to recognize that and say, how do we retain talent, right? So that is where, to your point, you're absolutely right. It becomes a xenophobic industry, and we all need to open up to that and be more receptive.
I think your question, Prahlad, was about corporate functions versus ops.
Well, it was more on the lines, it's twofold. One is, and I think Gautam hit it well, we need to be better from our employer branding. And by employer branding, I don't mean go and enroll in great places to work, so on and so forth. It starts with that intern coming in. If that intern has a good experience, has tangible learnings that they can take away, they will be excited about joining an industry like ours. They will go and spread it by word of mouth, and that will create a better perception of working in this industry. The second part to my question, which I would love for you to shine some light upon, is even before attempting to go and do a internship in a hotel or a management training program in a hotel or a hospitality company, these guys are already starting to look at businesses outside saying, I have the skill that allows me to be a service professional, somebody with good communication, good interpersonal abilities. So I'll go and work in a retail company. I'll go and work for a real estate company. I'll go and work for an e-commerce company. These companies pay me better, they treat me better, they give me more tangible responsibility.
But that's a millennial problem. That's not a hospitality entry problem of wanting to desire before you deserve. That's a millennial issue.
So to my point, today's incumbent is a millennial and Gen Z. So that is a problem that we have to learn how to address. It's not going to happen the other way around. The employer will have to change for the future employee, right? So
I had a question for you, and we spoke about this outside. You've got a great school you're running here. How many of your batch have gone in for an operations job in a hotel? What percentage?
So 30% have gone into hotels. Out of that 30%, I think one student has gone into an operational role. So, wow. Yeah, that says something, right?
So
I also pulled some students aside just to kind of ask them, hey, so what do you want to do, so they could see it.
Real estate.
Yeah, I don't think anybody said hotels, so yeah.
I mean, look, I think ops firstly is a hard job. It's not an easy job. Now, somebody spoke about work-life balance. To me, you don't get work-life balance in a consulting firm or, in the search industry or anywhere else. It's not. But at least you get paid for it. Right? Here,
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, I mean, if we have that mindset that this is bonded labor and, we're doing them a favor, we aren't going anywhere. So we'll continue getting people. I don't think getting people is the issue. I suspect getting the right people is the bigger question. Indeed. You need to worry about, and you need to think about if 10 years from now, what quality of people are going to come into an ops job in a hotel. And if that answer is it's going down, we have a problem. So till you don't pay more, you forget everything else, right? Put aside all the work-life balance, blah, 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 put all that aside. If you don't pay more, and if you don't help them grow faster, because I'm not going to spend 10 years moving from one function to the other, why would I?
Yeah,
I've got 20 years ago, there were no options. There was no Amazon, there was no Uber, there was no Make My Trip. So I was stuck. I had to do this. If my boss shouted at me anything, I was stuck here. That is over. So till now, you said 2 decades gap, 5 years gap, I don't know, but
No, so if you look, okay, just go back and say, okay, how many, all the, say, let me make this up, all the 1990 batches from PUSA, OCLD, Taj, Welcome Group, etc., how many of them that passed out are still in the industry? I can tell you less than 5%. I do searches by batch, they've just, moved on. But having said which, let's also realize that everyone in this room who's about the age of 30 or thereabouts are going to in any case have 3 or 4 careers. So you might start off doing something, but that's not, think of your dad, joining a job and then retiring from there is over in any case. But more than that, it's not the same company also, it's also different professions. I'm in my 3rd profession, from FMCG to advertising to search and God knows what else. So वो तो होना ही है, there's no option there. So let's not also self-flagellate beyond a point. But the fact of the matter is, let's make the best of this problem.
So I think you hit a very important point, right? We keep talking about loyalty and commitment to an organization. I think we have to start understanding this generation for what they are. They are explorers and they like to have experiences. And I think in us being able to understand that, the first thing we need to say is that, okay, they're probably going to be with us for 3 to 5 years, and not more than that. They're going to go and move on to other careers. How is it that we can extract the most from them in those 3 to 5 years and give them back the most, so that in their leaving, they're able to provide a positive impression of the experiences they've had with you, so that bringing in the next generation is not difficult either? Food for thought. Yogendra, I'd love to get your views on this.
I think what is important here to know is that we need to be very, very adaptive and flexible in the way we are going out and attracting our talent going forward. The conventional methods will not work, right? And the way hospitality graduates are looking at multiple options, multiple careers, we have to also find ways to attract people who may not be initially starting a career in a hospitality, and as Ashutosh said, we have to look at people who are able to run the business without being associated with the business. I think that's an important aspect, and I think we spoke about this in the morning also, that it is important for us to look at the capabilities not from a functional point of view or industry point of view, but more from a leadership point of view. I think that's where we have to make that change and transformation in our approach to hire people going forward in industry. I think that's my view on how I think.
Would anybody like to add anything to that?
I mean, I think just providing cross-functional exposure beyond just ops, right? So I don't know how it works, but can an ops person go into sales and then come back to ops, go into digital marketing and then do HR and then come back? Does that happen in the industry? I'm not sure.
No.
Exactly. And
So I think that the bigger question, should it?
It absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's where we are evolving to. A lot of organizations have started doing that and multi-scaling, and that's how you will end up paying more.
But is that a byproduct of the pandemic where you require one person to do more than one job, or is that a general evolution of what we should be doing?
It has to be designed such way.
Exactly.
It has to be designed in a way that there is a complete exposure given, and then depending upon the interest and the opportunities, we create, careers for people going forward.
I mean,
So I think it has to be designed.
What I would say, I mean, do we do exit interviews? I mean, in hospitality, is that something?
Yeah.
So do we do stay interviews?
We call
We
them
do,
job
right?
chats.
So my point is, talk to a youngster and say, okay, this is before they've come with a resignation, saying, so what do you want to do in life? There, right? Chances are, he or she will give you some clues. Now, you will not always be able to fulfill that. But if you can start to take a more proactive approach, now we are discussing this because,
Water is under the bridge.
yeah, exactly. But if we do that, that's one step in the right direction.
So, as we're going through this discussion and as I'm hearing all the things you're saying, clearly there's a lot we need to do. And I think everybody here who has ever experienced a challenge for talent is kind of overwhelmed with, there's so much, there's pay, there's work-life balance, there's this, there's that, there's the other. But we have to start. And I think it was said, somebody on the panel here said it, I think Ashutosh, it was you, start with pay. Everything else can follow. But again, I'm being a little more emphatic about this because from the time I started ISH to now, I hate to say this, and I love this industry, I grew up here, but all I hear is people talk. Nothing has been done about this. So again, it's just something for you to think about. We at ISH have always been open to creating a forum that will allow industry leaders, people like yourselves in the audience here to come and have an open conversation, an open verbal discussion about what it is we can do, what it is we can't do. I think we keep talking about what we can do, what we should do. We should be very clear about what we can't do as well. And we can talk more about that as we finish this session and move outside. But I want to come back to something we spoke about a little earlier, the demographic disconnect. Today's incumbent employee is younger and younger. Your consumer is younger and younger. You hit the nail on the head. 30-year-olds, 25-year-olds, they have money. Their companies are paying for them to travel. They're the ones that are being provided for by hotels today. Is it not important for us to understand that leaders in the hospitality and hotel business need to stop looking at their employees in their own mold? Because there is a generational divide. The aspirations, the mindsets, the ambitions of the younger workforce is completely different. We've touched upon these points. Is this a problem faced only in the hospitality industry, or do you gentlemen see it across sectors?
I tell you, for example, PepsiCo it was, or was it Coke? I forget which one. They and they faced this problem, or they at least talked about this problem about 8-9 years back. And so we worked on a project on how to fix this, because you had this 55-year-old manager and identical issue, work-life balance. I want to go on holidays and I can't work till 9 at night and so on and so forth. So they actually had counseling sessions for the older people, saying, boss, this is a youngster, he has a different scene in life, and made them realize that their own teenagers at home were behaving a bit similarly. And also had or induction sessions for these guys, saying, "Wo thoda buddha hai, so thoda, listen to that person and kind of just listen to him. You'll still do what you have to do, but So somewhere down the line, at least they try to break it down a bit and at least address that. And some degree of understanding, I think they were able to get in about 6 months' time or whatever. And so the attrition level that they were facing that the guy came in within a year, and these are expensive people that they hire, starting salaries of 30-40 lakhs. So and the investment that they were making in getting them to join. If a FMCG company typically hires 40 people in its batch from management schools, premium management schools, at the end of even today, 2 years, there are about 5 left, 7 left. So, that's the sign. That's the times we live in. You look at the software industry pays the highest, loses 50% of its. Any company is losing 50% of its workforce every year. So in 2 years' time, you're changing your workforce in any case. So don't worry about that. You can handle attrition through culture and whatever else. But yes, without money, then it's going to be 70-80%.
Would you like to shine some light on that as well?
No, I think.
Okay, so flipping the same question back to the hoteliers on the panel, what are we doing about this demographic disconnect? Old versus young, both employer, employee, and organization and customer. What are we as an industry doing about this? How are we bridging this gap? Are we doing anything to explain to our senior leaders about the mindset of the younger guys coming in? Are we doing anything for the younger guys to understand the mold in which the senior guys are there? Can you shine some light upon that?
Leela. Yes, I think I think you're right in saying that there is a workforce disconnect. And I said earlier also when I spoke about multi-generational workforce under the same roof, you have people who are 40 years and 45 years old who are managing 21 years old. And you have guests who are coming into the hotels who are 21 years old and who are gifted and they have the privileges to actually experience and dine in a 5-star luxury hotel and give them an experience. And there are 21-year-old also servicing them. So their mindset is similar in terms of knowing what the guest wants. But then you have somebody who's a 45 years old who's trying to manage and say this is not the right way to do it. You can't be so informal with the guest. So I think what we're doing is, one is that a lot of focus is going on training and development. And so next year budget and going forward, we are spending almost 3 to 4 times more than what we have spent this year. There is large focus on developing our people managers. I think we have to build awareness. We talked about diversity and inclusion in the morning. And I think Ranju who talked about diversity and inclusion. We have to go beyond just gender. Because you have different kinds of guests coming in who are differently oriented. So the youngsters understand that. So I have my son who's 18 years old, so he understands that. He's very open about what is there, but we are not. And we have to accept it that we are not. So building awareness in our people managers, into your Gen X, I would say, into your millennials, to understand this and to how to react in situations wherein you may have somebody in your team, and how do you deal with that, and not to feel shocked about a few things. So I think a lot of focus on development, training, building awareness, culture segregation. A lot of people come from rural areas. We have a lot of people coming from kitchen, let's say, who come from maybe a tier 3, tier 4 cities. Now, how do you make them aware of that? So building awareness around that piece also. If we talk about, let's say, a posh kind of a thing, and just an example in this case, that a lot of people don't know what it is all about. They think it is right. So it's not about what you said, what it did, so it's about the impact which you create in the other person's mind. So I think a lot of focus on development of people managers, building awareness, building our leadership development programs like LLDP, programs like Palace Services, we tied up with like British Guilders Guild to provide career to them so that they are able to get adequate leadership skill, take on bigger roles in the hotels. And to give them empowerment, especially people in front of the house, F&B service, front office, front of the house folks, they have to be empowered, they have to be trusted. Trust is a big factor. A lot of time we don't trust. So I think a lot of our HR policies are made around 1% of people who will default. I think we have to change that mindset. A lot of industries have moved into making policies to manage, not to manage the 1%, but to manage 99%. In case somebody does make this example, a leave policy, or you have a travel expense policy, just for that 1% you make policy with so many approvals and everything, but only 1 or 2 people will actually misuse that policy. So imagine the entire changes the game of trust. And what these younger generation needs is trust. Do you trust me? Do you care for me? And that's why in Leela we believe in 5 C's philosophy. I think one is compensation. That's absolutely right. We need to say right compensation. I'll not say you increase salaries double, triple, 4 times. Those guys will still not stay beyond, let's say, a year or 6 months. I think about right compensation paid to them, give them a career, a great culture, coach them, guide them, and overall compassion. These 5, 6 elements of 5 C's and 6 C's are going to make our industry better from a other's lens to come and join us and work for us.
I think along with training, I think the number one thing is to just bring in, to Ashutosh's earlier point, bring in people from other industries, because they will, you don't need to then train people. I will see somebody from an Amazon joining a hotel and I'll be like, okay, Amazon talks of Amazon customer service is great, we agree. When is the last time we've spoken to an Amazon, an employee at Amazon? Exactly. But they are known to have the best
They know
customer
the stock ops Amazon gives.
So I think if you bring in people from outside and not just at the bottom, but whether it's at a CEO level or at the mid level, you bring in a few people and let that magic happen of learning from each other. And then of course do all the training, etc. there, things will get better.
So we have to, just adding one more point, I think we have to experiment with this. I think we are being very, very conservative in our approach of not hiring people who are non-IHM.
Yeah.
I think somebody spoke about in the morning that this is not rocket science, right? We can
industry in one
we can turn
I've never heard that before.
F&B service, front office, these are skills which can be taught. I mean, kitchen is still technical, I would say, but I think skills like front office, F&B service, it's all about service and meeting your guests, and this can still be gotten from anywhere.
So when we spoke about the demographic disconnect, so there are 2 parts to it. One, from a guest point of view, I think we have enough kind of sensitization programs, training programs, and cross-cultural understandings to handle that. I think the biggest problem here, or no, I will not say a problem, but an opportunity here is how our managers are dealing with the new generation, right? I think that's an area where it needs a little more hand-holding, little more focus, and little more, coaching and mentoring of the generation X with generation Y. So that's where I think that there's a disconnect which needs to be addressed.
I think one word, inclusivity. Inclusivity of the older generation with the newer generation, of the LGBTQ community, of the plus, and of course gender. I think as an industry we are not doing enough, and we are not putting benchmarks. We have to have more women in our workforce. We have to have, it was reported in the media, so let me tell you a quick story. A journalist called one of our hotels in Doha and asked, will you accept me as a gay couple? The reservation assistant said no. The policy of the company is very clear. We accept you as you are. Obviously, this resource was not trained, and he put his personal preference in front out there. Damage control mode, so on and so forth. But one of the learnings that we had was we have to be more inclusive. We have to ensure that everyone is trained in inclusivity. And that's really it. It's training and inclusivity which will actually create that bond for all.
Thank you. So, from the sessions of this morning to the sessions of this afternoon and this, we've seen a lot of commonality in thread when it comes to talent. We are not attractive, people are moving elsewhere, we're not being able to retain talent, and we've spoken about the different things that we're going to do about it. When we're going to do that, I don't know. We'll speak about that. But I want to kind of end with just one last question per se, and I'm going to go back to something Dilip said this morning. Will this ongoing battle for talent escalate into a full-fledged war? I would love to get one-liner from each one of you on that.
I think
I
Ashutosh
said
has
it
the
earlier.
answer.
The answer is
yes.
Yeah.
I think Ashutosh said
the
that
talent,
perfect.
the war for talent is over, talent's won. So,
Absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to enter a war, and it is totally up to you how you're going to fight it. I think there is a commonality of belief and thought process on what we're going to do about this going forward, but I think it's high time we start actioning upon it. And I think I'll leave it to you to internalize. We can speak more over the rest of the day, the evening, but I think the time is now. If we leave it any later, this is a losing battle. This is a losing war. But thank you so much, gentlemen. Yeah, sure.
I want to give you guys a solution for this question about demographic divide. How about all of you, most of you are very senior leaders in the industry, think about reverse mentoring. Find two young people in your hotel or in your office or wherever they are, make them your mentors. Make sure that once a week they have to come and tell you any trends, what's happening in the online world, what's happening in the social world, what are these three, those WhatsApp OMG and LMK and all that nonsense. That's the way you will keep in touch and bridge that demographic divide. Very easy to do. The young people will love it because you're the boss and you're saying, okay, you're my mentor, and take one male and one female under the age of 30 and try this out for the next 3 to 6 months. I promise you it'll work for you because it worked for me when I was in the hospitality industry. In my office, I had one girl, one guy. Once a week, they had to come to me for half an hour and give me gyan. How social media is working, what's the newest trend, all this jargon about how WhatsApp is used. So maybe that's something you can all take back to your hotels and say, we'll find ourselves two young people and make them our mentors.
Fantastic.
I just hope you listen to them and hear what they have to say instead of kind of brushing them off, because it works both ways. But thank you, gentlemen, so much. I'm going to really quickly, for a quick second, open up to the audience. I know there are a few questions here. We're running short on time, but yeah.